Good afternoon and welcome to Locked On NBA Daily. On today's show, we finally hear from Kawhi Leonard, who spoke to reporters for the first time since news of the Clippers scandal broke. Is he on the same page as the organization? We talk about that. Meanwhile, Nuggets fans have to be thrilled after hearing what Nikola Jokic said about his future in Denver. You are Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On NBA. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making us your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we're talking about a ton of storylines out of NBA Media Day across the league, including what Nikola Jokic said about his future in Denver and DeAndre Ayton on his chance with the Lakers. We'll also hear from the hosts of Locked On Celtics and Locked On Timberwolves as we continue our team preview series, and we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. And as always, I have two of the best with me from the Locked On Knicks podcast. He's filling in for Matt Moore. It's Gavin Schall. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report, it's Haize. Haize, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Media day was yesterday. I feel basketball is just getting closer and closer. And I'm not going to be disappointed by the Bulls this year. You know why? Because I have zero expectations. Zero.
How are the Knicks' expectations, Gavin?
They're in Abu Dhabi right now. I don't know how much we'll learn while they're there, but they're back on Thursday, man. We're here. We have NBA basketball, so I'm really excited.
We are here, and we did hear from Kawhi Leonard for the first time since news of the Clippers scandal broke at Clippers Media Day on Monday. Kawhi did his best to deflect the allegations. He called it clickbait journalism. He denied any wrongdoing. He did acknowledge that he's owed money by Aspiration, then added that it was actually more than the $7 million that was reported. But when asked if the allegation that it was a no-show deal was accurate, he responded, quote, "I don't think it's accurate," end quote. He also said that he didn't think that it would be a distraction for the team this season. Guys, so much to get to with Clippers Media Day, right? Kawhi spoke. Lawrence Frank talked to reporters and denied these allegations as well. We can get to that here in a second. We also heard from Bradley Beal. But Haize, after hearing from Kawhi, how do you think he handled his first public comments since the scandal broke?
I'll be fair. I think he handled it about as well as you could. I still think, saying that it wasn't a no-show deal or alluding to it is like, okay, well, where did you show up? What did you do? What did you do, Kawhi? But outside of that, I think he handled it about as well as could be expected.
Yeah, I don't know what else he was supposed to say. It felt like he spent a lot of time in a room this summer with lawyers and had something that was really rehearsed. And you know what? For a guy who doesn't talk a lot, he did a really good job presenting it. But ultimately, this is going to come down to the NBA's investigation. There's nothing he could say to dispel it. Of course, court of public opinion matters to whatever extent, and he did as good as he could have.
Yeah, it's clear that the company line has been made, right? From the top down, everybody talking about how we welcome the investigation by the NBA. They all denied wrongdoing of any sort. We heard Kawhi say that. Then Clippers president of basketball operations, Lawrence Frank, spoke to reporters. He read from a prepared statement and said, part of it is, quote, "We're glad that there's an investigation. We're eager for the truth to come out. The assumptions and the conclusions that have been made are disappointing and upsetting. And we expect the investigation will show that these allegations are wrong," end quote. Then, guys, he was asked point blank a follow-up question. Did you guys violate any rules? And he repeatedly said that the team, Kawhi, and Kawhi's representation knew the rules. He was asked again, okay, I understand you know the rules. Did you basically break any of these rules? And he said, "We know the rules." I don't know what you guys think initially about this reporting from Pablo Torre and his podcast, and whether or not you actually think that the Clippers have done anything wrong here. But I'll ask it this way. Haize, did the way that the Clippers handled this situation make you doubt Pablo's reporting anymore at this point?
Can I say hell no here? No, it didn't make me doubt it anymore. No, they did nothing to cause me to doubt what Pablo Torre reported at all. I don't know if they could have. In fairness, I don't know, other than coming out there with, some evidence, I don't know if they could have done anything. Like what Pablo Torre has reported seems pretty damning when you put all the information together. The optics of it look terrible. And I don't feel like they did or they really could have done anything to change the optics of it, to be honest with you.
We know the rules is not a ringing endorsement for for you not being guilty, right? Pretty easy to just come out and say, no, we didn't break the rules. It kind of seems like when you don't say we didn't break the rules, you're admitting that you broke the rules. So I'm going to say no. I think clearly it is a matter of extent here. And this is what I find most fascinating about this whole thing is that the NBA ideally would sweep this under the rug. This is not a good story for the NBA. For the other owners, I'm curious what percentage of the other owners are like, this is BS. We've never done this. Like Kawhi's contract needs to be voided. The Clippers need to be punished to the fullest extent of the NBA law versus some other owners who are kind of sitting there sweating a little bit. It's like, well, if Pablo Torre looked into us, we did something kind of similar. So that is like the most interesting part of like the implication of we know the rules is like how many other teams know the rules and also bend them. If the reporting is true, this is not bending them. This is like smashing them to pieces with a 100-pound hammer.
It was a little bit like you get pulled over by a cop because you're doing 80 on the highway and the cop pulls you over and you're like, I knew the speed limit. And the cop's like, yeah, you were 15 miles over. I knew what the speed limit was, sir. I knew what it was. We did get a funny moment, though, during Clippers Media Day. Bradley Beal making his Clippers Media Day debut either isn't paying attention to the biggest story in the league or has trouble reading the room. When asked about why he chose the Clippers, he mentioned that Steve Ballmer made an offer that was better than anybody else's. Quote, it wasn't an easy decision. This in particular stuck out a lot. One, who Steve Ballmer is, how he operates, and what he stands for. Their pitch was honestly just better, end quote. Haize, how could he?
Listen, this is where somebody who's not media trained at all, like, did he not think about the words that were coming out of his mouth? Like, somebody after he got off that podium had to say, Bradley, what are we doing here, man?
Part of that pitch, did he mention any apple? Did he mention any trees in that pitch, Bradley?
How many companies were there at that pitch there, Bradley? That's the question.
Go ahead, Gavin.
Oh, I don't know. Brad, right. I live in Phoenix. I'm across the street from the arena. I'm very familiar with Bradley Beal. I thought he was an exceptionally nice dude. Said the right things generally. This was a departure from that. He did not read the room.
Let's go really quickly through fact or fluff. This is the game we play when we hear the quotes, and we're going to try to decide whether this is fact or fluff. And of course, Media Day is a lot of fluff, but we're going to try to get to the bottom of it here. And in Denver at Nuggets Media Day, Nikola Jokic was asked about bypassing a contract extension this offseason. He said, quote, I don't think about it. Those contract extensions come. My plan is to be a Nugget forever. End quote. Of course, Jokic does not have to sign that contract extension this summer. That's something he can also sign next summer. But Haize, fact or fluff, Jokic wants to be a Nugget forever.
Fact. I don't think there's anything other than that. Like when the Nuggets didn't sweat at all with him not signing the extension. They understood it. It's just business. He's making sure he can get the most money. Jokic is going to be a Nugget for life. I feel very confident saying that. Like and that's hard to say in a modern NBA where players switch teams towards the end of their career. But I feel confident. Like if any player is going to finish their career out, it's going to be Jokic with the Nuggets.
Yeah, I'm going to say fact. I think there's been some understandable frustration there the past couple of years with the way Calvin Booth has like failed, like to be fair, operating within like a very limited infrastructure of available money, but has totally failed to maximize that in the way all the best teams in the NBA do. It's probably already cost Nikola Jokic the second championship. I do think the fact that the Cronkies were willing to move on, were willing to bring in presumably people that Jokic was more comfortable with and are going to be like, I mean, we saw evidence of it, right? With them going out and getting Cam Johnson, Tim Hardaway, Jonas Valanciunas, like they have a real team now. And to me, that is all he needed. I put him in that Tim Duncan category, that Steph Curry category of genuinely selfless superstar. My only bit of doubt is I kind of feel like him and Luka Doncic want to play together at some point, but I think that would most likely be in Denver because I don't think he wants to leave.
Let's go to Los Angeles. Gavin, you and Nick Engstad did a great job breaking down things that Luka and LeBron said at Lakers Media Day for game night last night. But DeAndre Ayton also spoke with reporters making his Lakers debut. And he said, quote, this is an opportunity that I can say I'm truly not going to take for granted. I'm somewhere where it counts now. I get a chance to prove something big on a big stage, end quote. Haize, fact or fluff, that DeAndre Ayton is going to take advantage of this opportunity with the Lakers?
I think he is. I think DeAndre Ayton, like if he really wants to turn his NBA career around, and he looks at how he was talked about after leaving the Suns, and even some while he was, of course, in Portland, like this is an opportunity for DeAndre Ayton to really show that he does care, because we know that he's a talented player. Like, he has gifts, he has physical gifts. He is a talented player. He's a flawed player, but very talented. And so now you're in a situation where the Lakers need what you bring. You may not be quite the lob threat or rim protector that you ideally want around Luka, but you're still, you're there what they need at the center position. So he has a great opportunity here. I hope he can turn it around, because if not, it's going to start looking ugly for him after this contract.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Fluff-ish on this one. He can definitely play harder than he played in Portland, right? We saw it in Phoenix, and I think it's worth remembering, like, he was a central piece on a team that came within 2 games of winning an NBA championship. He was, at least by his standards, but I would say almost by anyone's standards, a defensive force during that playoff run, like single-handedly holding that group together. Like, he has been a contributor to championship level basketball in his career. That's true. What's also true is this is a guy who said when he was the number 1 pick in the draft, his career goal was to get to his 2nd contract. But I do legitimately believe that Luka is the closest thing he's ever going to have to late prime Chris Paul in terms of spoon feeding him shots. He hasn't hit above 42nd percentile in rim frequency since his 3rd year in the league. If he can get more lobs, he's never shot more than 3 free throws a game in his career. Just play around the rim a little bit more. I do think Luka will be great for getting him to the in-between game where he's really good. We'll see a better version of him. I don't think he's ever hitting the potential he had coming out of Arizona.
Oh, for sure. I agree with that.
There does seem to be an awareness, at least from DeAndre, in that, hey, if I can't make it work next to Luka and LeBron, I'm probably not going to be able to make it work in the NBA to the degree that people expect me to be able to make it work. But we're going to move on. Coming up, the Celtics have a front court issue, but could they address their need for a center with a trade? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, I've tried player props, and I've even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On NBA. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube. The season is around the corner, and over the next few days, we're going to be checking in with the hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network and asking them the biggest questions facing the team that they cover heading into the season. Let's go to Boston, where the Celtics are facing a gap year. John Corrales says that there's some important work still to be done.
The biggest question for the Celtics this season is finding that piece or multiple pieces that fit with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard for the long haul. I think the Celtics are going to be built on depth, just like most teams in the second apron era. I think the Indiana Pacers got it right, and I think the Celtics are going to have to find those types of complementary pieces, the bargain basement guys that maybe on the surface you say, what's this guy doing? You know, why do you have this guy on the roster? But in combination with the other players, he works, he fits, he's part of a cohesive unit. So I think this season, in addition to being a season where guys are going to play hard and try to make the playoffs and try to make some noise and try to surprise some people, it's going to be a series of auditions for Luka Garza, Josh Minot, even established guys like Nemish Queta and maybe, a Jordan Walsh or somebody, at the end of the bench that they need to figure out, the Celtics need to figure out if these guys can be part of a team that has depth and execution that can be kind of built on a cheaper kind of scale, but can still be a championship-worthy team.
So, Gavin, John had mentioned a few different names there on the Celtics roster. Any of them stand out to you? Do you like any of these guys to potentially pop this season?
No, I don't. Not, I mean, like as rotation guys, sure. I don't think any of those names will be playing a significant role on the next Celtics team that contends for a title. I'll tell you who will pop, who wasn't one of those names mentioned, is Peyton Pritchard, who I think has a pretty decent chance. And Anthony Simons is really the only one mitigating factor here, but I wouldn't be shocked if Peyton Pritchard was an all-star this year. We're talking about a guy who, according to Cleaning the Glass, was the single most efficient scoring guard in all of basketball, 1.28 points per shot attempt last year, 75% at the rim, 53% from mid-range. That also was the best of any guard in the NBA, 41% from three, while taking the 10th most threes per 36 minutes in the NBA. I think Joe Mazzulla empowers him to shoot 10 threes a game this year. I could see him putting up 20 plus points per game on good efficiency. I think he's going to be someone who establishes himself as like a pretty clear-cut top 60 to 70 player in the NBA, and like a no doubt about it guy in terms of the best contracts in the NBA. Haize, I'm curious if you disagree, but in terms of the back end of this rotation, I think Boston has some real issues in terms of quality depth.
They do have issues with quality depth. And I mean, and that's what they've really been built on for a while now. But I think they know that. I think I'm not going to say that's necessarily by design. But I think they're a little fine with that, with where things currently sit with their roster. They do have a trade chip in Anthony Simons that they can try to cash in on at some point to add some of that. So I think they're going to be a team, especially if Tatum does come back towards the end of the season, like he's hoping, that they can pivot if they need to and try to add some things. But they have some depth issues. I still think they're going to be good in the Eastern Conference. I still can see them making a top 6 or 7 seed in the Eastern Conference, but I don't see them going very far in the playoffs.
This could be a big year for Jordan Walsh. That's the name that popped out to me when John was talking. This is his 3rd season. He's got the length. He's got the athleticism. They need somebody like that on the perimeter with Tatum out. It could be a big year. There's playing time for him. It could be a big year if he does take advantage. Haize, you mentioned maybe them making a trade at some point this season. We asked John, is this the worst Celtics front court rotation in the history of the franchise? And he mentioned maybe making a potential trade. Here's his response.
This Celtics front court is so bad that when Brad Stevens was asked about it back in July, he couldn't even muster up the same kind of general praise that you expect a front office guy to give you some canned answer. He basically said, people will look at these guys on paper and say that they're not the best, and it's up to these guys to prove them wrong. And that's not the glowing kind of recommendation, kind of praise or anything like that you want from a front office. So yeah, the front court is not good for the Celtics, but there is a chance that they could be surprising. Neemias Queta is coming off a decent Eurobasket. Chris Boucher has a history of some success in the NBA. Luka Garza is a good offensive player, but can the Celtics find the missing pieces, the missing elements to their games? If not, then they'll have to look elsewhere. And I'm sure Anthony Simons in the Celtics trade exploration could be the answer to this front court issue, but that's not coming anytime soon. So for now, is it the worst in team history? There were some really dark times in the Rick Pitino years in that range. So I don't know if it's the worst, but it might be the worst in the NBA.
Haize disappeared. Gavin, if this is the worst front court rotation in the NBA, how big of a concern is that for the Celtics? And are they a Simons trade away from addressing it?
I mean, it's only a concern if they're trying to win this year, which is somewhat ambiguous. Obviously, in a world where you think you're getting a 90% version of Jason Tatum in February, which seems optimistic, but I know that's when John was on my podcast, he mentioned that as a possible return date, then you're just trying to stay afloat. And the beauty, Wes, you know this as well as I do. Haize, you know this as well as I do. The beauty of being in the Eastern Conference is you could have the worst front court rotation in the NBA, but if you have Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, and Jaylen Brown, you might still be the 8 seed. You might still be the 7 seed. And it feels inevitable that Simons gets traded for a front court piece, right? Like he was a throw-in for that Drew Holiday trade because Brad Stevens saw an asset that he could spin forward into something else. He makes no sense on this team. The quote from Joe Mazzulla to Anthony Simons apparently was, "You're not as bad on defense as people think you are." That is not a ringing endorsement. Anthony Simons yesterday on playing defense. It's just a matter of if I want to do it or not. It's really that simple. Look, like, Cato will be fine defensively, solid rim protector, solid rim runner, but one of the worst starting centers in basketball. Chris Boucher in his career, only 2 seasons shooting well from 3 on volume. He's considered like this really solid stretch forward. He hasn't proven that consistently throughout his NBA career. Luka Garza's never played because of his defense. Tillman's like a nice physical guy. Like, there is nothing here that stands out. I don't see them being far above a 500 team because of that front court. But I think if Jason Tatum's coming back, they will make a trade. If he's not coming back, they're probably content with being in the lottery and hoping to get some luck there.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be bad enough to be in the lottery, but I do love that Corrales did say that the front court can be decent like that, because that's the most you're hoping for, right? Is the depth there, is that it can be decent. And to Gavin's point, you've seen it in the Eastern Conference. If you're top, even if you're top heavy and you just have decent role players that know their role and could perform pretty well, you can go pretty far in the Eastern Conference. And I think that may be what the Celtics are hoping for. But to Gavin's point, it's win-win for them, because either you'll be better than you're expecting and you have the Anthony Simons trade chip and you can cash that in at the trade deadline if you think Tatum's going to make his way back, or at worst, you're going to be a lottery team in a deep draft and you can add some much needed talent to this team, young, cost-effective talent. So I think either way, the Boston Celtics are in a pretty darn good situation, to be honest with you. Getting the rights back to their own first-round pick really helped add some clarity for them on this season.
I tend to be lower on the Celtics than everybody else. Maybe not surprising for the guy that covers the Miami Heat, but I think it's a huge issue. You went from one of the best center rotations in the league with Porzingis and Al Horford to reliable vets at that spot to just a bunch of unreliable, unproven guys. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch what that gap can do to a team that's also dealing with a bunch of different kinds of injuries and subtractions to the roster. But we're going to move on to the Western Conference. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the host of Locked on Timberwolves has pinpointed a certain guard on the team that he thinks has to make a leap this season. We'll talk about that next year on Locked on NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop and on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Maximize your investments, get on a schedule, and organize your finances so you could better plan for your future. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Thanks again for making Locked on NBA your first listen of the day. Let's go to Minnesota, where we asked Locked on Timberwolves host Ben Beacon about the biggest question facing the Timberwolves this season.
I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Wolves podcast. The biggest question surrounding the Timberwolves this year, it would be easy to say the end of the rotation, the Nickeil Alexander-Walker's role that has been vacated, right? That's the easy answer. But I think the real biggest question mark is, will Anthony Edwards take the next leap from a top 5, 6 player to a top 3 player and a true MVP contender? If the goal is to win the NBA Finals, which it should be for a team that's been to the conference finals in 2 straight years, then it needs to be an Anthony Edwards leap. And maybe secondarily, progression in that direction to be an all-star caliber player from somebody like a Jaden McDaniels. The 8th, 9th rotation spots are likely not going to win you the title come June next year. They're going to help you get to the playoffs. They might get you back to the conference finals if they do replace Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the best way. But the real question is, will Anthony Edwards take the leap to the Luka, Giannis, SGA, Jokic tier? That's the biggest question this year.
Haize, I want to go to you first, because on our Monday episode, you predicted a leap for Anthony Edwards. This is a guy who I think in our Locked On Top 100 we had as a top 7 guy. When you hear Ben talk about a leap, when you're talking about a leap, what does that mean to you?
To me, like what we saw Anthony Edwards do a lot, like of course the shooting, right? He became a better shooter and a better like playmaker last year, but it was leadership. Like Anthony Edwards really stepped into a role of leadership, and a lot of times when the Timberwolves were struggling, he called himself out as much as his teammates as well, and things that they needed to get done. But he always also made sure to put himself in that. And so I think when I look at a leap from Anthony Edwards, to me, it's really getting into that from, hey, you have the chance to be one of the best players in the NBA, to adamantly, I think he's going to be talked about as like a top 5, top 3, maybe even player at the end of the season. I think defensively, he's kind of understood how he needs to step that up. I think making big shots, I think where he kind of failed at sometimes in the playoffs is going to be a wake-up call for him as well. And Anthony Edwards just is a very driven player, and I think we're going to see the competitiveness from him take a step up as well. Like, this is a team that keeps getting closer and closer to getting to the finals, and I think this is the year that they're going to have a really great chance, and a big part of that is going to be Anthony Edwards taking his game to another level.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little more incremental for him. I mean, at first, I think we have to acknowledge that he's just one of the great development stories in the NBA. The concern from him coming out of Georgia was this was a guy who was focused on football his entire life, was like a 100th percentile athlete, but did he have just the basketball sense? And like, could he catch up? Because it was like years and years and years of development that other guys had on him, just from a basketball IQ perspective to his peers. And like he has just gone so far and beyond that. The level that he showed of just being able to read the floor and make the right unselfish decision over and over again against the Oklahoma City Thunder, even though they didn't win that series, even though he underperformed just from a points per game perspective, that really impressed me. That was meaningful. That was significant from Anthony Edwards. But for them to get out of the West, he has to go almost another 2, 3, 4 levels above that and become close to like a Luka or LeBron tier manipulative passer, right? Like baiting every single defender on the floor, positioning his guys where he wants them to be, and over and over and over again, being able to generate corner threes and dunks out of thin air for what is a somewhat limited roster in terms of creation, right? Good play finishers. Rudy's a great lob threat. They have plenty of great shooters around him. Julius obviously is an interesting secondary ball handler, but this is not a team that is flush with like genuine secondary creation. And I don't really think, other than betting on some internal development and better chemistry, they didn't really address that over the summer. So it's on Ant to just carry an extraordinary load in terms of spoon feeding guys shots. He basically has to be like Shea as a scorer and Luka as a passer in one guy. And right now, like in his early 20s still, like I think that is probably a little bit too much to ask for him. I think it's going to take Minnesota like rejiggering their roster and finding like a legitimate second star as good as Julius Randle was in the playoffs. We saw his limitations against the defense as good as the Thunder, for this Minnesota team to reach the finals. That being said, they do have some young pieces that are really exciting that are going to help them on the margins and help them replace Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah, I like the talent they have on this roster for sure. And Julius Randle did play, to your credit. Like, that was some of the best basketball I saw Julius Randle play last year. And so, like, can he keep that up? Can he do it again is going to be a legitimate question. I do think eventually they're going to have to find a long-term backcourt mate for Anthony Edwards, too. Whether you trust Anthony Edwards to take that next step as a playmaker, or you bring in somebody who can take off some of those playmaking duties from him and allow him to be the score. Anthony Edwards to kind of focus on scoring and defense. They are going to have to find that long term, but so there's still definitely questions on this team. But I believe in Anthony Edwards is the type of person, like you said, like the development. He has the right mentality that you trust him to capitalize and maximize on every bit of the potential that's in him as a player.
I like to remind people that he had to become a better 3-point shooter, so he just started studying different people's 3-point shot forms. And he landed on Damian Lillard's, and he just adopted it. I call him NBA Kirby. He's just like, that power, I want it, and he just grabs it, and then he just has it, and you're just like, oh wow! All of a sudden,
led the NBA in threes. Like,
exactly.
Maybe the best athlete in the NBA led the NBA and made threes. It's crazy at 23 years old.
And then he said he's been watching Jordan and Kobe tapes this summer. So if he's learning through osmosis like that basketball, that's very scary. It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. Chris Finch also, for the record, did talk about Anthony Edwards and what he needed to improve on during Timberwolves Media Day, and he also mentioned the playmaking part of it too. So this is on the menu for Anthony Edwards. This is something he's obviously very aware of. You guys both alluded to who can make a leap. Is there a young guy there that can help maybe take some of that playmaking duty off of Anthony Edwards' plate? We asked Ben of Locked On Wolves, does Rob Dillingham need to emerge as that guy this season?
I'm Ben Beacon, host of the daily Locked On Wolves podcast, and true false question. Do the Timberwolves need Rob Dillingham to overtake Mike Conley in order to make it back to the Western Conference Finals and hopefully further? I'm going to say false. I think Minnesota can make it back to the conference finals and hopefully further if Mike Conley is still starting. I don't know that overtake is the right way to look at this. If Rob Dillingham ultimately plays as many, maybe slightly more minutes than Mike Conley, but isn't the starter, I think that's a scenario that the Wolves could live with, where Rob Dillingham's providing some of that off-ball offense. I don't see him as a pure point guard initiating the Wolves offense. I see him playing off of Anthony Edwards. I see him playing next to Dante DiVincenzo and sharing some ball handling duties. I see him playing along with the point forward Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle. Rob Dillingham is going to be an ancillary scorer with this team and provide offense and catch and shoot ability, not necessarily as a point guard taking over for Mike Conley this season.
We got to be quick with our answers here. Mike Conley, 37 years old. Haize, how much longer can the Wolves hold out to replace Mike Conley at that point guard spot?
I think this is the last season that they can do it. I think that they're going to have to hope that either Rob Dillingham does emerge, or they're going to have to find another person that can maybe start for a couple of years until Rob's ready or something. But I think this is the last year you can bet on Mike Conley, because it just seems like that the gas in that tank is running on E. And no shot to him on that one. He's had a great career.
Yeah, it's 100% going to need to be by committee. Like it's not going to be Conley at this point. Dante DiVincenzo, we saw in the Knicks, we saw last year in Minnesota. He's someone who can take on some of that, even though he's not a natural point guard. I look at Jaden McDaniels to continue to improve as a shot creator. I thought his interior passing, like some of the spray outs he had last year, he's clearly making strides in that area. Terrence Shannon Jr. off the bench is someone in summer league who showed flashes of being able to like leverage his shooting, get into the lane, kick outs to the corner. I think he will help, but they need that one guy, and prime Mike Conley, ironically, would have been perfect. We are way past that with Mike Conley, unfortunately. So they're going to have to make a trade.
They picked Dillingham in the top 10 last year, traded up in the first round to go get him. He actually had one of the worst on-off numbers on the team, but offensively, the Timberwolves were actually nearly 2 points better per 100 possessions with Dillingham on the court. It's defensively where they were horrible with Dillingham on the court, but if they could put the right infrastructure around him, maybe protect him defensively, maybe there is something there, but it definitely feels like they're going to need to get something from Dillingham sooner rather than later. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thank you to Gavin and Haize for their expertise on today's episode. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.